This is Wreckreation, a game all about stunts, destruction, and racing, published by THQ Nordic. Not to be confused with Wreckfest, a game all about stunts, destruction, and racing, published by THQ Nordic. No, these games are not, in fact, related. Wreckreation's lineage actually stems back to the Burnout series. The studio behind the game, Three Fields Entertainment, was founded by ex-Criterion devs that worked on the Burnout games till the very end. And that will be very obvious to you while playing through Wreckreation. This game loves to nod back to the Burnout series, especially Paradise. Everything from UI and HUD design to gameplay modes to how you unlock new cars all feels very Burnout. And not to a fault, Burnout Paradise was an awesome game, but I've often found myself noticing during my time in this early preview that every time Wreckreation nods back to Burnout, it's not doing that thing any better, and sometimes it's doing it worse. The devs clearly want you to remember Burnout Paradise while playing Wreckreation, but it ends up constantly reminding me that Burnout Paradise was kind of a better game. With that said, as much as Wreckreation does love reminding you of its roots, it is actually much more than just an attempt to recapture the glory of Burnout. Wreckreation is very much its own game, so what is Wreckreation? This is a much more open-ended, sandboxy take on the Burnout Paradise formula, in a smaller scope, developed by a much smaller team with one big new feature: the ability to permanently edit and build your world and share it with your friends. This is what Wreckreation is all about. There are races, challenges, and collectibles, and we'll talk about those, but the crowning feature here is Live Mix, the ability to, at any point during free roam, start building to your heart's content within your version of the game's mix world. And like I said, these changes are persistent. This stuff won't go away when you close the game or join a friend's lobby. Every ramp you place, every skytrack you build, every giant duck you hide in the woods stays there until you remove it. This means that the pretty big 400 square kilometer island will evolve, change, grow, and keep the memories of your journey throughout the game, and that is really cool. Say you build yourself a shortcut or a jump to span a gap. Well, months later, you could come across that same shortcut and thank your past self for leaving it there. Or maybe you have a really fun all-night building session with your buddies, creating a massive, intricate racetrack in the mountains. That racetrack will always be in your world. You can always come back to it. Now, for what it's worth, because I know people will be curious, yes, you can clear everything and start from scratch if you want, but I think the persistence of the world is its strong suit. I don't really ever see myself wanting to wipe the slate clean. Let's take a step back though and talk about the building itself. There are about 400 unique prop items for you to build with, most of which will be road and stunt pieces, like corners, intersections, loops, ramps, corkscrews, and whatever else in plenty of variations. And then of course, lots of decorations as well, ranging from sensible to silly. You can enter the build menu at the click of a button at any point during free roam and can essentially place whatever you want wherever you want, with some minor restrictions. There is a snapping system, and generally the placement works pretty well, but the camera can definitely be annoying at times, and I did run into situations where the placement or snapping kind of bugged out. It's worth noting that you can build with friends. Whoever is running the session has control over that, and one great quality of life feature I do have to shout out is the fact that existing world objects like trees will automatically remove themselves if you build a road or something that intersects them. So you don't have to worry about dodging trees with your tracks. They just take care of that for you. Overall, the building system is pretty easy to use, but fairly basic as well. You can't scale props, rotate them on multiple axes, or group things together, and there aren't a lot of more natural props like foliage, rocks, normal-sized streets, houses, and other buildings. The system is much more focused around grand sky tracks and big stunts, more Hot Wheels style, than it is with letting you build out a quiet little neighborhood or more realistically sized and decorated racetrack. And the building system, of course, is also tied into an ability to create your own events. You can build a racetrack, then create a fully custom event there with your own checkpoints, weather, and whatever else. And just like your builds, these events can be saved permanently on the map. I also want to use this time to talk about the checkpoint system for races, because it does actually have a really unique feature. The checkpoints are physical, smashable objects, and when you run through them, you get skill points and a bit of boost. But if you're not in first place, or if you're doing a lapped circuit, these checkpoints will of course be partially broken down before you get to them, and while you always get credit for crossing the checkpoint, you only get the points and boost if you smash part of the letters, so it's always worth it to find a new part of the checkpoint to smash through. It's a small mechanic, but it adds a fun little extra level of gameplay to the races that I haven't ever seen before. With that said, back in the builder, you can make much more than just races. Custom skill challenges of all different varieties can be set up just about anywhere for you and your friends to compete in. And again, this is what Wreckreation is all about. It's a big sandbox for you to mess around in. You have tons of creative control, even outside of the building. At any point, you can of course change the radio between any of the 16 stations, but you can also change the time of day, change the weather, alter the amount of traffic, or even customize your car in free roam with the admittedly fairly limited options that largely revolve around changing the colors of things. The game DJ menu is always there and is a very powerful tool for changing basically anything about the game. At the end of the day, Wreckreation doesn't concern itself with immersion or storytelling, it just gives you a big box of features to play with. But here's the problem with big sandboxes. Before you've built anything, they're just a pile of sand. And in Wreckreation, the very large open world is admittedly very boring. This is a map about 4 times the size of Forza Horizon 5, but it really only has one environment. The whole map looks more or less like this. There isn't like a desert or snowy mountains or a jungle or a city or heck even a town really. The map is not much more than a large ribbon of roads through this kind of temperate, woodsy, somewhat rocky and mountainous island. There aren't many recognizable landmarks or points of interest either. It kind of all blends together. Now of course, if you spend a lot of time building, you as the player can change that to a degree, but that's gonna take a while, and it still would have been really nice to see some more variety in the original landscape. This is also why I'd love to see more natural props. If they're gonna give me a bland map, at least let me build a better one myself. They do let you rename all the roads and even the world itself, which is a fun extra feature, but I feel like it falls a bit short with the prop selection, and I'd love to have the tools to build out a town or city in my world, or change the landscape in a more meaningful way to make my world truly mine. Outside of the building though, let's talk about the actual structure of the game, the progression and general gameplay loop. You start with just one car and a completely covered map. Then as you drive, we'll reveal the world and find lots of events and challenges. In the free roam, there are hundreds of billboards to smash. Some just want you to run through them, others require you to do a specific stunt, and then rectangular billboards record your stunt score as you hit them and display the highest score among your friends, which is pretty neat. Every single road also has records that track things like your highest drift score, biggest airtime, and whatever else, and these are also all shared and displayed across your friend list, so you can always see who has the best score on whichever road you're on. You'll also find prop unlocks in the open world, which you can smash to unlock a building item in Live Mix. Some of these can just be collected through normal driving, but a lot of them will require you to enter Live Mix in order to create a path or ramp up to the collectible. And I love this as a mechanic, incorporating the Live Mix building into the regular gameplay loop, where you're always hopping into it to build a ramp for a billboard or a path up to a prop item, is a really smart use of the feature, and a good way to get the player comfortable with building stuff. So the open world has a lot of collectibles in it. Between the billboards, Live Mix items, and smashable gates, there are around 700 open world collectible or smashable goals. So if you like collectathon stuff, you will have your hands pretty full with Wreckfest. There are also 24 unique cars to earn, many of which you'll get through open world shutdowns, which, yeah, are exactly like Burnout Paradise. You find the car in the world, crash it, and that unlocks it. Each car has a special upgraded variant that you can unlock too, so there are technically 48 cars in the game. In multiplayer, you can just swap cars from the game DJ menu, but in single player, and this is really cool, every parking lot you find in the map will be filled with all the cars you've unlocked. You can just pull into the lot and then swap to whichever one you want. These also serve as fast travel points, so anytime you fast travel, you can also change cars. There are also gas stations scattered around that act as fast travel points too and can repair your vehicle, and these have smaller parking areas in them that will always have your favorite and most recently unlocked cars. This mechanic is really neat. Throughout my time playing, it was fun to watch the parking areas slowly fill up with all my cars, and having my favorites all parked up at every gas station is a great extra detail. Now let's dive into the more structured events you can compete in. Your island comes with just shy of 150 races, road rages, and reckoning events for you to complete. You'll find these scattered all over the map and can do them in more or less any order. The races are your standard Burnout style race. Your goal is to beat up to 7 other drivers to the finish line, and smashing into them is absolutely an option. Road rages are again standard Burnout stuff. You need to wreck a certain amount of cars within the time limit without your own car getting destroyed. There's also off-road races that are more free-form, having you travel cross-country most of the time, and reckonings, which are specific to a certain car, and once complete will get you an upgraded version of that car. Completing events will upgrade your license, which unlocks new stuff, and that feels familiar, and that's essentially how the progression and gameplay loop works. You drive around in the open world, building stuff, smashing billboards, gates, and live mix items, then discover and compete in race events to upgrade your license and unlock new cars and gameplay features. So there is a sense of progression to Wreckreation, but it is fairly light and open-ended. Now, I don't know how I've made it this far without talking about the driving and crash physics. So the driving itself is what I would describe as serviceable. It's very much fine and feels perhaps a bit cookie cutter or not very dynamic and lively. Overall, it gets the job done. It doesn't get in the way of my enjoyment of the game at all, and generally works for the fast-paced, stunt-focused style of driving that the game is tuned for. You have control of the car in the air too, and it's actually strafe control, which is kind of weird for me to get used to, but ultimately very useful. The opponent driver AI is also decent. You can't change the difficulty scaling and can do the events in any order, so it doesn't ever feel like the AI gets much harder. And I don't feel like they put up a great fight a lot of the time, but again, they're serviceable. No major complaints, just nothing to really compliment either. The crashing is also what I would describe as serviceable. The body deformation is less detailed and precise than what I'd expect from something like Wreckfest or BeamNG, and is more in line with the Burnout games of old, but what it lacks is actual weight and momentum from the vehicles. When you slam into a barrier, the car just stops. It doesn't have weight to it, and this translates to wrecking other cars too. While it's always fun to see doors fly off and hoods crumple, there's just a certain lack of heaviness to the cars and crashes, and I don't get that same dopamine hit from slamming another car into a barrier that I used to get back in the Burnout days. So this, paired with the more simple driving mechanics, often very wide roads and kinda bland scenery, means that the races and road rage events just don't quite capture the magic of Burnout. While Wreckreation as a whole, on paper, seems a lot like Burnout Paradise, with so many of the same or similar features, gameplay elements, and design choices, in practice, the overall presentation of Wreckreation feels lacking. Many of the UI and HUD elements and sound effects feel like they need another quality pass. The visuals, too, are pretty cookie-cutter Unreal Engine graphics. The game looks fine, but it lacks art direction and style, and does suffer from some common UE shortfalls like muddy, unsharp post-processing and a bit of stuttering. The game ran pretty well for me on my high-end PC, but the occasional stutter was still quite noticeable, and hopefully they can iron that out. So overall, Wreckreation's presentation leads me to feel like I'm playing an early alpha build with a lot of placeholders and unfinished elements. The concept for the game is really cool, genuinely. Taking parts of Burnout Paradise and putting that into a big, multiplayer-friendly, buildable, persistent sandbox with a bit of Trackmania energy is an incredible idea, and there are more more unique things here. The parking lot system, the way checkpoints work, the rectangular billboards, and all the other persistent leaderboards you can fight over with your friends. These are all wonderfully refreshing and fun innovations for the genre as a whole, but I can't help but feel like Three Fields Entertainment bit off more than they could chew. This is a big game being developed by a small dev team, and I wish they could have had more time to focus on giving Wreckreation more of its own style and polish. That said, if you can see past the smaller details and connect with the bigger picture, there is a diamond in the rough here. If you're looking for a big vehicular sandbox to goof around in with your friends, not much else is really doing what Wreckreation is, and I think you're gonna have a great time with it. I've been having a decent time playing solo too. It may not be Burnout Paradise 2, but it's still great to see a small team keeping the series alive, even just spiritually. And I hope this release gives Three Fields the motivation and funding to work on a bigger, better sequel that can dial in the world, gameplay, and features and really drive home that Burnout feel we've all been missing for the last decade. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think about Wreckreation in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.